Hey everybody, and welcome to Crossing Kin. I'm Kristen, and today we're doing something a little bit different. Today we are doing a what if. Now, before I get started with any part of this what if, I want to note that I got the idea for this and am implementing some of the scenarios put forth by a YouTube video on plot twists. The what if we're going to talk about was actually used as an example of a bad plot twist, the actual scenario that happened rather than the what if I'm creating. The video was done by Overly Sarcastic Productions. I have actually talked about them before on this channel, and I will link them in the description below. Um, if you are a fan of mythologies, histories, architecture, a bunch of random stuff, please, by all means, go and check out that channel. Some of what they talk about is absolutely fascinating, especially if you are a history or mythology buff. While Overly Sarcastic Productions Red, who was the presenter in that video, didn't go into full detail about what she thought would happen if this scenario were to play out, she did give some ideas. I am kind of taking those and running with them. I'm expanding on them a little bit and seeing what else we can get to by having this scenario play out. So thank you very much, OSP. I am a very big fan, and I hope that if you see this, you like my what if. So now that all full credit has been given where it's due, let's get into this what if. Spoiler warning for all of the MCU. And if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, we are discussing what would happen if MCU Quicksilver hadn't died. So, spoilers for all of the MCU. All of it. Every last little bit of it from the very beginning to the most recent stuff with Thunderbolts and all that jazz. Spoilers. At the time of this recording, Thunderbolts is not out yet, but spoiler warning regardless. So, if you missed any part of the MCU, go watch what you've missed and then come back to this video. Cool? Let's go. All right. So, in 2008, Marvel Studios launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the film Iron Man. It was so well received that it went on to spawn the entirety of the cinematic universe, and it shows no signs of slowing down or stopping anytime soon. With multiple of the films being some of the most lucrative in movie history, many TV shows on Disney Plus being hailed as cinematic levels of great, and more of both coming down the pipe. I'm going to say this right out of the gate. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is nothing short of brilliant. If you don't believe me, go and see my MCU ranking that I did last year. I included all of the movies to the point of that release, as well as all the shows that had been released at the time I made that video. While I know that not everyone feels this way, a portion of the fandom seem to agree that there aren't any truly bad Marvel films. Again, some are weaker, some just don't hit the mark perfectly, some are great. In 2015, Marvel fans received a tragic offender of this good but missed the mark side of Marvel with Avengers Age of Ultron. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. I do like this movie quite a bit. It has decent pacing, excellent humor, more foreshadowing of what's to come in the MCU that follows it than any other Marvel film before or since, honestly. And the core six Avengers all have such fantastic chemistry with each other that you'd think they'd been best friends since childhood. The new characters it introduces, Wanda, Pietro, Vision, and Claw, are all stellar and bring something new to the film and to the MCU at large. It also made sure in the post-credit scene that Thanos was on his way. There are a lot of things that this movie does really well, but there are also several that I think it missed the mark on. Let's take a look at why that is. While the film wasn't a failure either as an overall film or financially, for a time it was the third highest grossing Disney company film of all time. It certainly fell short of expectations of both the studio and fans. But why is that? In short, I feel Whedon lost the balance he had in The Avengers, and the problem was with the villain. The Avengers had Loki, played to absolute perfection by Tom Hiddleston. People who liked him from Thor could watch and hope for his redemption, while those who didn't could thoroughly enjoy watching the Hulk smash him around like a rag doll. Avengers Age of Ultron had, well, Ultron. I'm not going to get into his comic origins too much, but let's just say he was created by Hank Pym, um, and he was just a pure evil robot. Little to no personality, had a very simple goal of wanting to either destroy humanity or enslave them under his rule. Ultron was done really well in the criminally underrated, short lived show Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, as he was true to the comics, scary, and felt like a legitimate threat. Ultron in the film is different. Played by James Spader, who sort of freaks me out in everything he's been in, even when he's a good guy, Ultron is full of personality. Having been created by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner in this version, he is constantly quipping, much to my chagrin. He seems genuinely hurt when Wanda and Pietro abandon him and join the Avengers, and then he kidnaps Black Widow and keeps her alive just so he can have someone to evilly monologue to. And with the exception of a jump scare and Spader's creepy voice, he comes off as more condescending to me than scary. Villain problems aside, the film also suffers from the fact that they spent the whole movie seemingly setting up a death for Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, only to have him rescued at the last minute by Quicksilver, who stupidly dies as a plot twist. Let's get into this. As I said at the beginning of this video, the whole reason I came up with the idea for this what if is that Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions honed in on the part where Quicksilver saves Clint as a bad plot twist for a whole video she did on plot twists. I will link that video down in the description as well as their channel. For Clint's part of the setup, he and Pietro are established as being not enemies, but not exactly friend material at the beginning of the film. Pietro runs into Clint during the fight, which sends Clint flying. Pietro quips, "You didn't see that coming," and then runs away right before Clint gets badly wounded. Clint is easily patched up, with him joking that he's going to live forever now. Later in the film, it's revealed that Clint has a family that none of the other Avengers except for Black Widow knew about. Personally, I like this aspect of the story, as it makes Clint one of maybe two Avengers that has normal human people to care about on a regular basis, at least at this point in the MCU. Clint being someone with something very personal to lose, having two kids and a pregnant wife, and a nice little farm, gives him some personal stakes in the whole the world's about to be annihilated by a killer robot plot. But in this case, giving Clint a family feels like it's going to be used kind of like when a film introduces an old character with only a week left until retirement. Everyone in the audience knows that character is going to die in some horribly tragic way, and he is put in the prime position to break your heart when he finally does bite it. During the gearing up to go beat the bad guy scene near the end of the film, when we're, rallying to go to Sokovia and face Ultron, Tony says, "Not all of us are going to make it out of this." And who's the screen on at this point? Clint! Looking at a picture of his wife and kids. Near the end of the film, Clint willingly runs into danger to rescue a kid. Since he's a dad himself, that beat totally makes sense to me. Seems really in character. And that's when he starts getting shot at by Ultron. Quicksilver runs in, and while it's not entirely clear what happens because of how it's filmed, it seems like he pushes Clint and the kid to safety, but apparently can't get out of the way himself. All that bait and switch setup aside, there are a couple of things about this with which I take issue. First, if the car wall, whatever that Quicksilver puts Clint and the kid behind, was close enough for Clint to be pushed behind it, why didn't Clint move there himself? And don't act like he didn't think quickly enough to, or wasn't capable of pulling that off. He's Hawkeye. Okay? I am done with the Hawkeye disrespect that most of the MCU fans and the universe itself seems content to give him. He's a shield agent and an Avenger. Thinking on his feet is literally what he has been trained to do for most of his life, from what we've seen. A tuck and roll should have been his first instinct. He and the kid could have waited in their hiding spot, let the danger pass, and then Quicksilver could have carried them to the transport away from danger if they really needed to get him involved here. If the car wall, whatever, wasn't close enough for Clint to move to it, then why didn't Quicksilver hide with them? Why was he out in the open when it would have been easier and less deadly to just tackle them, hide with his rescuees, and then get everyone to safety? He's not Yo-Yo. See Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if you don't know who that character is. It's a really good show. Seriously, take a look at it. He doesn't have to return to the spot where he started. Like that's not in his power set. He moves, he's there. It's super speed. It's not that complicated. It's really not. Second issue with all of this, it was established multiple times in the film that Quicksilver is faster than bullets and energy weapons. He spends half the movie outrunning those things. The only time he does get hit, it's on purpose because he was trying to make sure the bullet didn't hit Wanda. The man is capable of moving civilians out of the way of an out of control train, going extremely fast, for crying out loud. There is no reason he couldn't have moved fast enough to get out of the line of fire if he was also able to save Clint and the kid. The problem with Quicksilver's death is also more than it just being a stupid plot twist. It's the fact that he is a new character. Unlike Coulson, who we had known since the first Iron Man movie, he was in 4 out of the 6 Phase 1 films. We were just introduced to Pietro in Age of Ultron. And unfortunately, all of the moments that might have endeared him to us were cut from the final film. I have watched these deleted scenes on YouTube, and I can tell you they shouldn't have been cut, especially if Whedon wanted us to give a rip about the character's death. Basically, what I'm saying is that we as an audience didn't care enough about him yet for his death to mean anything to us. What's worse is that because Quicksilver spent a bulk of the film being a villain, none of the other characters, except for Wanda, who is his twin sister, really care about his death. Sure, Wanda is devastated when it happens and gets revenge on Ultron, and Clint names his newborn son after him, middle name, so he'll never actually get called Pietro. But there's no memorial service. He's not mentioned a single time in Civil War, Infinity War, or Endgame. And while he is mentioned in the Disney Plus show WandaVision, the actor that played him in Age of Ultron was replaced by Evan Peters, the actor that played the character in the X-Men movies. Quicksilver, the character, is one of the longest running, no pun intended, characters in the comics. And with the powerhouse that Wanda has become in the MCU in recent years, I feel as though he would have become equally important if he had been given his chance to shine. Now, I know that was a really long intro, but that's how much Quicksilver's death bothers me. So, without any further ado, let's dive in and ask the question, what if? Age of Ultron. This won't take long, but I feel like I should start at the beginning. So, let's go. Quicksilver saves Clint and the kid. For argument's sake, let's just have Pietro tackle all of them behind the car wall, whatever, and they stay there while the danger flies over. Clint would be surprised that the guy who started the movie attacking him and spent the entire fight trolling him just saved his life. Quicksilver would smile and do his "you didn't see that's coming" line. And Clint would say, "No, no, I didn't." And then he would give the kid to Pietro. Pietro would take the kid to his mother on the flying shuttle lifeboat thing while Clint fought off some of the last Ultron drones in the area. And then Pietro would come back and scoop Clint up. and get both of them on the lifeboat. The two of them would look at each other, both exhausted, with Clint saying, "Long day." Pietro would look back at the crumbling Sokovia with an incredibly sad expression and reply, "Yeah, long day." Now, I understand that without Quicksilver dying, Wanda wouldn't get her agony induced, destroy all the Ultrons with the power of revenge moments, but I think we could have a similar reaction if we have her see someone from one of the Quicksilver deleted scenes. For the purposes of this what if, all of the Quicksilver deleted scenes are in the film proper. In one of them, we see Wanda and Pietro interacting with the people of Sokovia before they meet Ultron. Pietro gives a pretty woman a silky dress, and Wanda stops their flirting by picking on Pietro. In a different deleted scene during the Sokovian evacuation, Pietro pauses to flirt with a woman. I'm going to pretend that this is the same woman. Wanda could see this woman still clutching and or wearing the dress that Pietro gave her earlier, getting killed by the Ultron drones as she's desperately trying to escape. Wanda sees this and is unable to save her in time. Then she looks all around her. Sokovia, her home that she so desperately wanted to save, is crumbling around her. And now a woman that she knew and her brother possibly had a thing for is dead. And she helped bring the thing that killed her to power. While this wouldn't get the same strong reaction as Quicksilver's death did, it would still get a reaction, especially if Wanda feels responsible for the death by her helping Ultron, and she literally watches helplessly as that woman dies because she's having to defend the thing that's keeping Sokovia together in the air. Wanda would still blast all the Ultrons away, and she would still go after Ultron and rip out his core. But this time she would say, "I wanted to free Sokovia. It was my home. It was the thing that kept me going. And you've turned it to rubble." She pulls out his core with her powers. "And now you know what it is like to lose the thing that kept you going." The rest of the film would play out basically the same. Vision saves Wanda, establishing their relationship at least a little. Sokovia is destroyed, and all the Ultrons are wiped out. Falcon, Vision, War Machine, Wanda, and Quicksilver are who make up the new team, and the film ends. Like I said, there wasn't much to that, but it does establish a couple of things for Pietro going forward. He's lost his home to something that could have been prevented. He has learned to appreciate and accept the help of entities like S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers after they helped evacuate his people. And he and Clint are friends now after the whole life saving, playful rapport they established. With all of that established, let's see how having Pietro alive would impact the following films. Civil War. We wouldn't see Quicksilver during the opening in Lagos. It starts out as a small job to capture crossbones, and none of them were expecting him to turn himself into a bomb. After Wanda's accident, we would see him talking to her in her room at the compound, telling her something like, "It wasn't your fault," or "You were trying to save Steve," or "Even more people would have died if you didn't do what you did." All around comforting big brother words. But she doesn't seem to be hearing them. Steve would come in to talk to her. Pietro would let him have the room, and as he's leaving, he would whisper to Steve that she's not listening to him. She never does. A lot of the following scenes would play out the same, with Pietro just sort of there. But during the Avengers chat about the Accords, he would say that if something like the Sokovia Accords existed a year ago, maybe Ultron wouldn't have been built in the first place, and Sokovia would still be here. If they were being monitored, Tony and Banner wouldn't have been able to play with Loki's scepter. Therefore, they wouldn't have been able to build Ultron since the government would have taken the scepter away and or forced Thor to take it onto Asgard straight away. So it's clear that he is in favor of the Accords, whereas Wanda silently seems opposed to them. Pietro would be on the phone with Wanda right before it's time to sign the Accords. He'd say that Tony thinks it's a good idea to have a Sokovian be the first name down when the Sokovia Accords are put into effect. Wanda asks if it makes him feel like he's honoring those they've lost, and he would respond that he's just trying to make sure that what happened to them doesn't happen again. Wanda would ask if he really thinks a bunch of papers are going to stop bad people from doing bad things. And Pietro simply tells her that he'll see her when he gets back. Maybe adding, don't watch too much TV while you and Viz have the place to yourselves. And then he hangs up and heaves an unsure sigh before Natasha tells him that they need to take their seats. After the explosion in the UN, Pietro is seen evacuating people, getting them to emergency services and searching the building for survivors. He's basically the search and rescue guy. He is also present for the capture of Bucky, as he will run in and put handcuffs on Bucky, Steve, Falcon, and T'Challa in order to stop their fight when Rhodey comes in and tells them to stand down. Later, at the CIA holding facility, he would hear what's supposed to happen with Wanda and isn't happy about it. But Zemo triggers Bucky's Winter Soldier side before he can really react. During Bucky's Winter Soldier fueled breakout, he would attempt to recapture Bucky, but Bucky would use his forward momentum to throw Pietro into the wall and knock him out. After it's clear that the fight between Steve and Tony is going to happen, Pietro tells Wanda that he's staying, but he's not going to hurt his friends. To which Wanda responds, we may not have a choice. During the airport fight in Germany, he and Wanda would have the first fight between them that we've seen. Pietro is trying to talk her down, but she says it doesn't matter if she were to change her mind about the Accords now. They would still lock her away because they fear her. Pietro would beg her to listen to him for once and would tell her that he wouldn't let them lock her away, to which Wanda would say, they convinced you to sign a paper that will put me in prison. They would convince you that it's for my own safety. They'd make you be the one to lock the door. And then she would throw him with her powers. He and Clint would also have a brief moment where Pietro thanks Clint for breaking Wanda out of the Avengers compound, but he's glad she has more than just him. Clint responds, but you're still going to try to punch me in the face, aren't you? Pietro would respond with a shrug. Sorry, old man, but it's fun. Pietro would also have a fun back and forth with Spider Man, as while he's not as young as Peter, they're closer in age than anyone else on Team Iron Man. So while the others find him a bit annoying, Pietro is having fun with him, and there's finally someone on the team that talks as quickly and as much as he does. Pietro would get kicked and partially trapped under some debris by Ant-Man in his Giant Man form, and as he pulls himself out from under it, War Machine begins his fall from the sky. Pietro is momentarily distracted by seeing Wanda hurt on the ground, but he starts running to try and catch Rhodey. He gets his hand on him but isn't able to save him, instead getting his arm crushed under the War Machine armor and is unconscious from the pain when Tony lands. The next time we see him, his arm is in a cast and sling, and he talks to Tony while Rhodey is in surgery. Tony would ask how his arm is, and he'd say that he heals quickly and to focus on Rhodey. He tells Tony that Natasha has disappeared, to which Tony says that she switched sides and helped Steve and Bucky escape by attacking T'Challa, which means she's as wanted as they are now, so she's on the run too. Pietro is upset by all this and says he wants to see Wanda and Clint. Tony says that that's impossible now. When Pietro asks why, Tony tells him that they're being kept at the Raft, which is the most secure and top secret prison in the world, and only a handful of people have access to it. Pietro realizes that what Wanda said before the fight was correct, and then says again that he wants to see his sister and friend. He asks Tony to give him the coordinates and says he'll just pop in and out. The guards won't even know he's there. He just wants to make sure they're okay. Tony snaps at Pietro that he's not going to break the law just to let him see Wanda and Clint. That's how they wound up at the Raft in the first place. Pietro snaps back that he thought Stark had changed, that he wasn't the same cocky playboy who allowed bombs to be dropped on his home, that he finally cared more about people's lives than his own image. Yes, I was wrong. And he starts to walk away. Tony grabs his shoulder and asks where he's going to go. And Pietro says, I don't know. You've managed to destroy every home I've ever had. And he runs off. We wouldn't see Pietro again until a little bit at the end that shows him in a hoodie with a duffel bag on his back. He would receive a message on a burner phone he's using. The ID would read Viz, telling him that law enforcement is in the area, and Pietro would run off. This implies that Vision is helping stay off the radar. While Pietro isn't necessarily wanted the way Natasha and the others are, he doesn't want to get caught and taken back to Stark. Infinity War. Quicksilver's part of Infinity War is hard because the film is already pretty perfect. But I do have an idea. So, since we have established that Vision is the one helping him stay off the radar, it would follow that once Vision started meeting up with Wanda, eventually Pietro would have gone to one of these meetups to see his sister and wound up teaming up with Natasha, Steve, and Sam. Since he's the only one that isn't technically wanted, he's able to move a little more freely and can help the others steer clear of Secretary Ross's hunting parties, as well as get/steal whatever supplies the team needs to keep moving without getting caught. He wouldn't turn up in the film until Wanda and Vision get attacked by Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight. He would help with the fight, and while he is more concerned with Wanda's safety, he does run Vision out of the fight onto their ship while the others deal with the bad guys. He would go back to the Avengers compound with them, and once they get there, Rhodey would ask him how his arm is. Pietro would say that it gets a little stiff when it rains, but he heals fast, and that Rhodey seems to as well. And he would point to Rhodey's mech legs. From here, the group would go to Wakanda, and most of the events would play out as they do in the original film, this time with Pietro on the ground in the battle. Once Thanos arrives during the hero's run, Pietro would get close to him, but Thanos would use the Reality Stone to make the ground under him completely encase his legs up to his waist. Thanos would then backhand him with the Infinity Gauntlet and seemingly break his neck, and possibly his back, depending on how hard he hits him. After Thanos uses the Time Stone to turn back time in order to tear the Mind Stone out of Vision's head, the neck/back break would be undone. But Thanos snaps his fingers before Pietro can do anything. After Thanos disappears, Pietro moves to Wanda to comfort her, but she turns to dust right in front of him. Pietro would sit there, looking at Steve in stunned silence, with Vision dead beside him and his twin turned to dust. Endgame. In Endgame, Pietro would obviously be with the Avengers in the aftermath of Thanos' snap. He would be desperately trying to keep himself together, but he would be in a similar state of shock as Thor, since he literally just watched as his sibling and close friend died right in front of him, just like Thor did at the beginning of Infinity War. He would probably be sitting with Thor during Steve and Tony's conversation, and upon seeing that they're devolving into an argument, he would snap at both of them that it's both of their faults. After his argument with Steve puts Tony in a hospital bed, Pietro would point out that he thinks Tony had a point, even if he's as much to blame as Steve is. If they had all been together, then the Avengers could have found a way to stop Thanos from getting all of the stones in the first place. But they are well past the time for blame and grudges because an alien just took out half the universe. When he hears that Carol has a plan for Thanos' takedown and that there's a possibility of undoing the snap, he's ready to go immediately. During the fight, he would run in and kick the gauntlet out of Thanos' reach and over to Rocket. He will probably be somewhere between horrified and all right with it when Thor kills Thanos. Especially given his impulsive nature and understanding of what Thor is going through, he wouldn't condone the action, but he wouldn't condemn it either. After the 5-year time jump, Pietro will basically serve as Natasha's right hand. As Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions put it in her video, he would be doing for Earth what Captain Marvel does for the rest of the universe, moving around constantly, helping whoever needs him. In my version, though, every time it's time for one of those meetings that Natasha hosts, he would always run back to the compound rather than using one of the holo communicators that the others use. Natasha would make a point of telling him that he doesn't have to come back every time, but he would respond that too many people have left and he wants to come back so she knows that he's okay and not faking it over the hologram. It would be him, also, along with Rhodey, that's been tracking Clint for Natasha, telling her that he wants Clint to come back as badly as she does. The whole Rhodey being pretty much horrified by the things he's seen Clint has done stays from the original. Remember, Clint and Pietro have this funny older slash little brother relationship. Pietro cares about Clint a lot. It may even be implied that he sneaked a visit to Clint's farm to check on him while Pietro was on the run with Team Cap. There will be a line later that says Pietro was the one who discovered what had happened at the Barton farm. He knew that Clint hadn't been dusted since several of Clint's things were missing, including his bow and arrows, and he later learned that someone matching Clint's weaponry and fighting style was tearing his way through the criminal underworlds, dealing with all the bad guys in a very permanent way. Though Clint always seems to get away or hides really well right before Pietro can get to him. Rhodey says they have to rein Clint in, but Pietro points out that he's basically been doing the same thing for the last 5 years, just less violently. And if this was a few years before Thanos, he would be helping Clint. Natasha says she just wants him found, and after Rhodey signs off, she reminds Pietro that he's changed. She doesn't think he'd be helping Clint if he could. She says he's not the same cocky cynic he was before Thanos. To which Pietro would remark that everyone's changed. They didn't have a choice. Clint's change is just a little scarier than everyone else's. While they've been talking, Pietro would be folding a piece of paper into the shape of a boat. He would hand it to Natasha when he's finished. With a smile, he would tell her that she's the best leader he's ever followed. Steve bailed. Stark turned on me. But you've held true, and the leader steers the ship. Natasha would chuckle and take the paper boat. This would establish that without Wanda and Clint around, Pietro and Natasha have sort of stepped in to be each other's brother slash sister. Pietro would leave Steve and Natasha alone while they have their talk and is about to head back out into the world when Scott comes to the front door. After Scott comes in with the idea of the time heist, Pietro is very eager to set the plan in motion. And then the team goes to talk to Tony. Pietro is a little impatient with Tony's hesitant and reiterates the fact that all of this is Tony and Steve's fault for deciding to fight, and now they need to be the ones to fix it. The rest of the beginnings of time travel would play out pretty close to how they were in the original, with Pietro trying to get everyone to stop being so hesitant and move faster. Pietro would go with Natasha to get Clint, though he seems less horrified by Clint's brutality than Natasha. Instead, Pietro, after telling Clint that he found the farm and he's sorry about his family, gets right to the point and tells him that there's a way to fix it. Like the original film, Clint is hesitant to believe them, but Natasha and Pietro convince him and the three of them hug. The film will play out the same until the time heist. The only difference will be Pietro pointing out that the Mind Stone gave him his powers. Rocket or Scott might ask how, and Pietro will shrug and say, Heck if I know. It had killed everyone else in the experiment, so I didn't question it when Wanda and I managed to survive. When the time heist starts, Pietro goes with Thor and Rocket to Asgard. Thor has his panic attack, and instead of letting Rocket slap him, Pietro uses their shared trauma of losing their countries, some of their best friends, and their younger siblings, and reminding him that the mission is how they repair some of that damage to calm Thor down. This doesn't fix the poor handling of Thor's PTSD in Endgame, but it does at least show one Avenger knows that bribing him with beer, constantly mocking him, and smacking him around does not help Thor push through all of the pain and guilt he feels over everything that's happened to him and his people. Pietro tells Thor to keep watch and then distracts the guards while Rocket sneaks in and gets the ether from Jane Foster. Thor would still be too shaken to stay, so he'd wander off and run into Frigga. Pietro and Rocket would both come running out, Pietro scooping Rocket up and putting him on his shoulder. Then they are frustrated when they have to go and find Thor with Frigga. Pietro is a little impatient while Thor summons Mjolnir, but he is happy for Thor when he is able to summon the hammer. They go back. They get back to the compound and realize that Natasha didn't make it back, and Pietro is devastated. While the others are on the dock, he goes to her room. He finds the paper boat from earlier and puts it in his pocket. He also finds a piece of paper and, after reading it, goes out to the docks and breaks up the argument between Thor and Clint. Steve notices the paper in Pietro's hand and asks what it is. Pietro says that Natasha apparently wrote sometimes, and he reads the paper. And there came a day, unlike any other, when Earth's mightiest heroes found themselves united against a common threat. The invincible, armored Iron Man, Thor, god of thunder, the incredible Hulk, the strongest hero there is, Hawkeye, the world's greatest marksman, Black Widow, the deadliest woman on Earth, and Captain America, the first Avenger. Their mission? To protect the Earth from threats that no single hero could withstand on their own. On that day, they became the Avengers. Pietro would look at the others, who are in tears, and say, "Let's finish this for her. Let's avenge her." This doesn't fix the fact that Natasha doesn't get a proper funeral or memorial service like Tony does, but it does give her a mini memorial, so it's something. Also, bonus points for some of the phrases being right out of the comics. The battle portion of the film would play out pretty similar to the original. Pietro would be there in the room when Hulk's snap happens and start to give Clint a hug when he gets the call from his wife, realizing that Hulk's snap worked. After the compound explodes, he would be trapped with Rocket, Rhodey, Hulk, and Scott, injured but not too badly. And then in the final battle with the rest of the Avengers. At one point, I'd like him to take somebody's energy weapon, either Shuri's or Peter Quill's, and purposefully get surrounded, and then use his speed and spin so fast while firing the weapon that it makes a ring of energy that hits all the bad guys and makes them drop at once. He and Wanda would have a moment of a reunion, but she is clearly still distraught over Vision and gunning for Thanos, so he's smart enough to get out of her way quickly. The rest of the film would play out as it originally did. The Avengers win, but Tony dies. Pietro would stand with Wanda, Bucky, and Sam at the funeral. He would not be with Wanda when she and Clint have their sweet moment by the lake. Instead, we would see him by himself, sending the little paper boat out onto the lake. And as the ship sinks, a tear rolls down his cheek, and he says, "Thank you for everything, Nat." In the little aftermath montage before the end of the film, we would see Pietro with Wanda in an apartment. Pietro looking worried as Wanda still looks distraught, but he grabs her hand and they smile at each other. WandaVision and beyond. This is where having Pietro alive would complicate things. WandaVision is a great series and is just about perfect in my opinion. I like Hawkeye as a series more, but WandaVision is arguably the better show. Considering the poor way Endgame treated Thor's PTSD, I was nervous about how they were going to handle Wanda's grief. Fortunately, I have nothing to worry about. The show is probably one of the best looks at how a person deals with the 5 stages of grief, and part of Wanda's grief comes from Pietro being dead. But let's ponder this for a moment. In this what if I've created, Wanda was snapped and Pietro wasn't. Pietro went through grief for both Wanda and Vision and had reached acceptance by the time of Endgame, even developing a new brother sister bond with Natasha. For Wanda, the snap and the blip happened almost instantaneously, as we saw from Monica Rambeau's perspective in WandaVision and Yelena's in Hawkeye. And to add insult to injury, as Red from OSP pointed out, these twins are now separated in age by 5 years. Pietro has grown and matured into a leader, a true avenger, while Wanda is the same as she ever was. So while he may not be dead, it's safe to say that the Pietro she knew before the snap is gone in a sense. And there is a great divide between Wanda and Pietro now. This could be highlighted in WandaVision episode 3, after Wanda has her twins. She mentions that she has a twin and becomes sad as she sings the Sokovian lullaby. Then Monica would say that he didn't go when you did, or something like that. Monica pointing out that Wanda and Pietro are no longer twins in a true sense, while not being as painful as bringing up him being killed, would still trigger Wanda into flinging Monica out of the hex. Later in episode 5, Wanda would still talk about Pietro as though he's dead, since the Pietro she knew is essentially gone. And when Evan Peters shows up, this would cause Agent Jimmy Woo, Darcy Lewis, and Monica to start looking for the actual Pietro, since they all know he's out there somewhere. He would come in at episode 7 with Monica's military friend, Monica having asked this friend to track him down and bring him along. Pietro would explain that the reason he wasn't with Wanda to prevent this is that the world is still in chaos with everybody coming back. And since he's one of the only Avengers still active, it falls on him to carry out the job of keeping the world safe, in his opinion. When Monica and Jimmy explain what's been happening with Wanda in the Hex, Pietro says that this is all his fault because he told Wanda where Vision's body was. He knew about Vision's will and about him wanting to be buried, but he never fully gave up hope that someday he'd find a way to bring Wanda back. So he let Sword take the body, thinking they would basically serve as a storage facility until he and Wanda could bury Vision together. He is furious when he finds out that Hayward dismantled Vision and turned him into a weapon. He offers to run right in and talk Wanda down, saying it should be safe for him since he and Wanda got their powers from the same source. He should be immune to the effects of the hex. Monica would ask him to stand down, as he could just break Wanda even more considering how delicate she is right now, and considering she recast him in her fantasy. He may not be the person she wants to see at this moment. After Monica runs in, though, and the hex doesn't go away, Pietro would run in too, possibly gaining some bonus powers. I believe he got some sort of time dilation ability linked to his speed in the comic, so that's possibly something we can now add in. Instead of Wanda, he would find Darcy and Vision in their stolen van. He would briefly flirt with Darcy and try to talk to Vision, but then Vision flies away. Pietro would run after him, leaving Darcy behind, who would yell after him, "Hey!" Of course. Flirt and then just leave the only person without powers behind. Typical. Pietro would be very confused by White Vision, but while Wanda and Vision are fighting Agatha and White Vision, he would protect Wanda's kids with Monica. He would join the family in the final fight against the military goons and Hayward. After all was said and done and the hex is brought down, and Vision, Billy, and Tommy are gone, Pietro would offer to go with Wanda wherever she's going. But she would tell him that the world needs him more than she does right now. And then she would fly off, promising Pietro that she would be in touch. I don't think we'd see Pietro that much in the forthcoming MCU. There's not a reason he would appear in Black Widow, as he's on the run too at that point. He could cameo in the post-credit scenes of Shang-Chi, taking Bruce's place on the holo call or just simply taking part in it. He would have no business appearing in Eternals. He probably wouldn't be in Spider-Man No Way Home unless it was the briefest of cameos. I think Pietro would definitely make a cameo in Hawkeye's TV show, basically having a brotherly check-in with Clint over a video call and wishing him a Merry Christmas while he's out on a job, and then possibly showing up for Christmas at the Barton farm, since the Bartons have basically adopted him. Maybe have him show Clint that he's learning ASL so that when he finally does go deaf, Pietro will still be able to talk his ear off. Just a couple of quick cameos at the beginning and end of the series. Short and sweet. We wouldn't see him prominently featured again until Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He would likely be called upon to try and help Doctor Strange reason with the Scarlet Witch. Pietro would wind up having to choose between helping his Darkhold corrupted sister and protecting young America Chavez. Upon realizing Wanda was truly gone, he would do his best to help Strange and Wong, though I'm not sure what his help would look like beyond pleading with Wanda to come back to her senses. At the end, Pietro would run off, following his sister's presumed death. We didn't see a body, so I don't think she's dead, but he would believe she is. His next moves remaining ambiguous. There are a few options for what he could do going forward, but honestly, I don't know. I don't think there would be much for him to do in Fantastic Four. I think maybe he would have a cameo in a post-credit scene of Captain America Brave New World. But honestly, I wouldn't see him coming around again really until the Thunderbolts. maybe trying to talk Bucky down. Again, at the time of this filming, Thunderbolts hasn't been released yet, so I don't know what all it goes down there, but he would possibly have a role in Thunderbolts. And while I do have a couple of ideas for what else he could do, possibly getting a Disney Plus show with Jimmy Woo and Darcy, I think they would make a really fun team. It would be a little bit similar to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It would be an interesting way to introduce mutants and vampires into the world of the MCU, since, in theory, the X-Men and Blade are coming to the MCU proper. It has always been my strong belief that Marvel wasted some major potential when they allowed Joss Whedon to kill Quicksilver off. Overly Sarcastic Productions video, again, that video on plot twists as well as their channel are now linked in the description. They gave me the inspiration to voice that opinion and offer my alternative. Huge thanks to them again for the inspiration. Personally, I think the reason Marvel let it slide is because Fox's X-Men were also using Quicksilver at the time, and he was a lot of people's favorite part of those X-Men movies. In the comics, Quicksilver is a linchpin character. While he may not be the one to directly trigger the event, he is, at the very least, part of the reason the event is triggered. See basically everything that happens during and after the House of M storyline in the comics. Because let's be honest, all that was as much on Quicksilver as it was on Wanda. There are characters in universe that still actively blame him and hold him responsible for Wanda's actions in that storyline, at least as far as my research has shown me. That doesn't diminish Quicksilver's importance. He was a member of Cap's kooky quartet, Cap, Wanda, Clint, and Pietro, the second team of Avengers, and his exploits in more recent comments prove that he is a deeply complicated character. So for him to be relegated to cannon fodder all for the sake of a bad plot twist, a la Hawkeye not being the one to die, and only furthering Wanda's arc, is spitting in the face of his fans and those who spent years writing him into a complex character that the people know and love/hate today. Is my version perfect? No. I'm a decent enough writer to admit that I know it's not perfect. But it is something interesting to think about. Quicksilver's death isn't something that has greatly affected the MCU on any grand scale. One could argue, and most likely would argue, that Wanda probably would have done exactly what she did in WandaVision even if Pietro was there, because losing the love of your life twice and then not being allowed to bury them is enough to push anyone over the edge. The MCU was not made weaker without Quicksilver. Some of the best movies in the MCU came out after his death. But as important as he is in the comics, I still feel like he was done incredibly dirty. Evan Peters' Quicksilver even says in WandaVision, "I was shot like a chump in the street." That's not something you should ever say about a beloved comic book character with super speed. But who knows? The MCU is now playing in the multiverse, so we could get another different version of Pietro when time comes for Doomsday. There are a myriad of ways that MCU Quicksilver could come back into the fold, though I'm not holding my breath. Personally, I'd like to see a version of him race Makari from the Eternals, since she was the best part of that movie, and speedster races are always fun. Regardless of my opinions on Quicksilver's death, Marvel is still fantastic, and I will always look forward to their next project, with or without their silver haired speedster. So that is it, guys. My what if Quicksilver hadn't died. Please let me know your opinions down in the comments section below. I am very curious what you guys would do with Quicksilver if he died. And again, huge thanks to Overly Sarcastic Productions for giving me the inspiration for this what if. This is something I want to do a little bit more of as time goes on. So if you guys have an idea for a what if that I could do, please drop that down in the comments below as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell while you are down in that comment section. And we will see y'all again in 2 weeks with Dad back with me. Until then, I'm Kristen. This has been Crossing Kin. Bye!